All right, thanks to all of you. Thanks particularly to Transmedia Network and to the Ghana Integrity Initiative. Charles Yao Mausi, thank you very much. Now, for our radio listeners who couldn't see what was going on, if you think corruption is far away from you, it can be closer than you thought. This driver needed a license. He wasn't qualified. He was disqualified, so he got another officer in the DVLA. This is a theater DVLA, not the real DVLA. We know it goes on there. He got there, the guy took a bribe and gave him the license without the guy passing the driving test, only to realize later that this same driver has killed almost all the passengers on his vehicle. His mother was one of them. Let's be careful. All right, so my guests are seated. And this morning, we are dealing with education, dealing with voting, elections, and also scars of the revolution. My guests for this morning are Abdul Malik Kwekubako, who is a regular panelist and editor-in-chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper. Also here in the studio is Dennis J. Jumo, and Dennis is a lawyer and has a passion for some of the issues that we'll be raising, particularly on the education front. And I'm particularly excited also that we are joined by a teacher and also someone who teaches history at the University of Ghana to assist us, particularly for the aspect that will deal with the scars of the revolution. Please forgive me. I'm just looking for my little write-up about my guests who are not that familiar to me, and some of whom are appearing today. Okay, Kwamina Ahina Kwakwashi is from the head of salaries of the head of salaries, working conditions at the department of at that department in NAT. Thank you very much for joining us, sir. Right, so we will be finding out why you are on this strike, and even though you have called it off for only 10 days, then what happens after the 10 days, and whether or not following the release that your monies are supposed to be paid, have you received the monies? Our next guest, Dr. Kwame Asa Asante. He is a senior lecturer at the University of Ghana Political Science Department. Thank you also very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Right. Okay, so gentlemen, we look at the education sector first, and we are asking questions why we got to this point in the first place. So we should start with you. We will be sharing also views from some of your compatriots and some of your leaders who in the course of this week have been speaking about the matters that have happened. But more particularly, we want to know why you had to take this decision at this particular time, when we know that there have been challenges with the system, particularly for the SHS students.
All right. Thank you so much. And let me greet your viewers and listeners. This arrest that we are talking about started somewhere in 2012.
2012.
Yes. Now, It came about as a result of people who had been recruited by district directors of education, and they were teaching Ghanaian children. Then somewhere in 2013, remember that was the period that government had then put in place the, started negotiating with the World Bank for this extended credit facility. So we had a letter from the Ministry of Finance, and we attended a meeting, and what they were saying was that, yes, they knew that some people have been recruited, they don't have financial clearance, but what they intend doing is that they are going to pay them only 3 months of those arrears. Then the rest, they developed some templates, I think 3 of them for our sector. One was for upgrading and promotions, one was for recruitment, and then the third one was for re-engagement and reinstatement. And that if you are one of them a victim, if you are a victim, then you have to go to the call center, which in this case is the district education office, take this form, fill it, and then attach all the relevant documents, including your recruitment letter, date of assumption of duty, and all sorts of things, including the RPPD input forms. You attach them, and then you submit it to the call center. The call center will then forward it to GS headquarters, and then it will be forwarded again to Ghana Audit Service for them to do the validation. Indeed, so this was the process that we went through up to somewhere in 2016. When they were doing it, the payments were not forthcoming, even though there were instances that they had then validated, but the payments were not forthcoming. So if you could remember, somewhere early February or March 2016, we engaged, and that was when they said they were then going to do their validation. So we agreed, they did their validation, they made some payments in 2016, they made some payments. When the government changed over in 2017, they continued with some payments. Then we realized that a chunk of our people, over 30,000 of them, are still not being paid. So we started discussions on these things with our employers. And then I remember somewhere in, I think, 2018 or so, they introduced this Human Resource Management Information System, which was the HR part of the payroll. And it was Public Services Corporation that was managing it. Now, when they introduced that system, we had some challenges, serious challenges. And indeed, it will interest you to note that it is only in Ghana Education Service that when you are promoted, your job does not necessarily change. For example, if you are a principal superintendent and you are teaching in class 1, if you are promoted to assistant director 2, you will still be teaching class 1. Your job does not necessarily change. But in the other public services, it doesn't work like that. So initially when they were designing that thing, we told them, they invited us, we told them that thing, that you are trying to design it in this fashion. It will not work for us. Then subsequent meetings, they didn't invite us again. So they designed that, and when they rolled it on, then it became a problem. Because if, for example, Joy FM here, we have a school, and let's say it is a junior high school and we have 5 teachers. 2 of them are principal superintendents, 2 are assistant director 2s, and 1 is assistant director 1. If one of the principal superintendents gets promotion to assistant director 2, they can't do this thing. They can't do the upgrading or the promotion this thing on the system, because the system knows that Joy FM JHS has only 2 principal superintendents, 2 assistant directors, 2 assistant director 2s, and then 1 assistant director. So the system will not pick. So that we have 2 assistant directors, and then 1 assistant director 1, and then 1 principal. So it will not pick at all. So it means they can't do it. So that was the challenge that we faced somewhere around from about July up to August. So on 12 September, I wrote a letter on behalf of my General Secretary to National Labour Commission about our intention to go on strike if they don't work on this human resource thing. And indeed, we are grateful to the President of the Republic. I think about 2 or 3 days later, we had a meeting, and then they told us that they are now going to take teachers out of the human resource management information system, and that controller and GES, controller should give us the APP, the two platform, and GES should be able to work on all promotions which were outstanding. And then from there, they will go ahead and pay the arrears, all types of arrears. So we had a meeting with them. And this was somewhere in early, I think late September. So we came back with a roadmap. And that GES said they will be able to do all the inputting on their system. So the teachers will be paid at the end of September. Then with regard to the legacy arrears, in fact, we have two batches of arrears. The one from 2012 to 2016 September is what we refer to as the legacy arrears.
Okay, and that's about how much?
And that is about 30,000 people.
That's about affects about 30,000
people.
Okay.
So they said the controller would then work when they had paid the October salary, because we had then reached an agreement that they don't want the arrears to be added to the main salaries. So it will be paid as a supplement after they have paid the October salaries. So we agreed. And that was for the legacy arrears. And we waited, October came, and nothing happened, right? Then we still engaged them. Then at the end of November, controller gave them the data, which they claim is about 1,800 or so. Even that one,
these engagements you were talking about were engagements at the level of the Labor Commission?
No. Okay. This were engagement at the level of national, was the Ministry of Employment and Labor Relations.
But you're saying that the engagements were triggered by your notice of 12th September.
Exactly.
To the Labor Commission.
To the Labor
Commission. Of your intention to strike.
To strike.
Okay.
And even at the letter that we sent to Labor Commission, they did not even respond. And that is the reason why subsequently we did not even inform them. Because if you don't respect us, we also not respect you in the same measure.
I see.
So we were engaging with Controller, Ghana Education Service, and Ministry of Employment and Labor Relations. Then we were told that Controller was going to give them the data after they have paid their November salaries, so that they would then be able to prepare a supplementary PV and pay the legacy arrears by middle of December.
Middle of December?
No, middle of November
middle
for
of
the legacy one.
Okay.
Good. So on 9th of November, Controller gave GES the data, right? They gave them the data. Then on 15th of November, the IPPD coordinator called me around 6:30. When I went to the office, we had close to about 20 people, teachers, mostly from Suryani and Akimoda, and then I think Central Region, who were there, and they have brought the same forms that they submitted way back in 2016, for which Ghana Audit Service did the verification or the validation. Then I said, what is happening? His response was that when they looked through the data, they have observed some anomalies. I said, fine. As the controller payroll system, there are a lot of anomalies. So this one, it is not a big deal. All that we are interested in is that segregate those anomalies and pay the rest that they don't have issues.
Okay. Then
we lingered on from 15 November up to the point when we declared a strike.
Okay. So 30 teachers, over 30 teachers you say affected?
Over 30,000.
30,000,
yes.
Sorry. 30,000 teachers affected. The teacher population is what?
The teacher population, we are, no, on this one, it affects both the teachers and the non-teachers.
Right.
So with the Ghana Education Service payroll, we are talking close to about 350,000.
350,000?
Yes.
So it's...
And initially,
it's okay to say this is a fraction.
No. You see, the thing affected over 120,000 people.
Over 120,000?
20,000 people.
Okay. I see. Right. So when you were going on the strike, it is not the case that you have been told that the monies will be processed and payment will be effected in December. That's not the case.
No, that one we rejected it.
You were promised that, but you rejected it.
You see, the issue had to
That was like the second or third promise. Is that the case?
I mean, several of the promises.
Okay.
You see, we were expected to receive the legacy arrears in November. When they had
middle
paid,
of November.
Middle of November.
Yes.
Then December, middle of December, we received that of the second batch, which is from October 2016 up to December 2018.
Since you didn't get the November one, you thought that
controller itself they couldn't even work on the second batch.
Okay, but the first batch they had done their work and submitted the PVs to
GS for them to review it, and that is a normal practice. You see, so I don't understand why they delayed.
Appreciate them when they said we're talking about arrears totaling 49,900,000.
That figure is not correct.
928,000.
Something that figure is not correct. That figure is monies that they release for the payment or transfer grant and other allowances like guide and those things.
They were saying
that is not the amount.
They were saying that if they went ahead to process it, the anomalies was going to cost the state as much as over 11 million.
And I'm saying that was not the issue.
Who said what about the 49 million thing you are quoting?
Yes, that's
check
the release.
No, check the date.
That 49 million was amount they released somewhere in September for the payment or transfer grant, TNTs, and all those things.
Okay.
And these are money to be paid on the table.
Yeah,
we pay salaries on the table in this country.
Officially, who has said that has something to do
so
with
this release that came in, it's not actually addressing what you have been fighting for.
That this is an old thing that somebody just put there to confuse people.
It's not official. Somebody just put it on social
media.
Put it
there on social media to just confuse people that salaries, do you pay salaries on the table?
So are you able to give us an idea how much is involved as far as the legacy arrears and those you have been fighting for is concerned?
No, for how much? No, I don't have any idea.
You don't have an idea?
Yes.
Okay.
That was only controller and possibly GS people who can give you that kind of information.
Okay. So, Kweku, from the narration that he's giving, since I became aware, and it's not to show any bias, since I became, politically aware and could follow national issues, I don't recall ever hearing that Labour was right when they took an action, particularly teachers. They have always been wrong. Why?
Well, I'm not too sure what you mean by your thing. I am pro-Labour, instinctively, almost always. But of course, we live in a law-governed society. So whilst instinctively I'm for Labour, anytime they embark on some industrial action, I put within that whole action within the context of the legal regime that guides our conduct.
Okay.
What are they supposed to do when they have dispute with their employers relative to this Labour Act that we all put together? And I asked myself whether in this particular instance, whether what they did, the action they took, actually can be defended within the context of this act. I understand the frustrations and all those things, but if we are a law-governed society, let's proceed from that regime. Now, I heard him talk about notice that was given to the National Labour Commission somewhere in September.
12th of September.
Yeah, clearly we cannot connect that to their present action relative to the legislation.
And that's the reason I asked whether it was the notice that triggered discussions within Labour Commission.
I got that drift.
If it was within Labour Commission, I would have asked a different question. But he says all of the discussions were not done at Labour Commission.
I heard you, and I knew you were right in that kind of question you asked. Now, this statement they issued, the trade unions, I think it's dated 5th December 2019. In this statement, they served notice that they will be embarking on the strike action effective Monday, 9th December 2019. So they used the press conference to serve notice to the whole nation, presumably Labour Commission included, not legally sustainable in that sense. And it's a matter of 5th to 9th is 4 days. The Labour Commission thing, when I read it, I'm not a legal, the Labour Act, when I read it, I see a certain 7 days if you serve notice to the Labour Commission. So clearly, again, this is inconsistent with what is captured here in terms of the law. No. Now, so having established the fact that in terms of the legal regime, the present action is unsustainable, in my candid opinion.
Okay.
Regardless of my instance.
So give me a minute there.
Yeah.
Is this your notice to the Labour Commission or to your employer about your intended strike?
This was a notice to our employer because I've said that on 12 September we sent a notice to a National Labour Commission and did not even acknowledge.
12 September, did you give when you were going to strike?
When we sent that notice to them, I think about a day later, you said about
or 2-3 days.
Yeah, we had a press conference. So we wrote to them and then gave them a copy of the press conference, right? And then in that press conference,
still in September. Still in September.
Yeah, still in September.
Okay.
And in that when we said they should then remove the Human Resource Management Information System to pave way for the payment of all types of arrears, which I'm saying that the government did that. But Labour Commission itself did not even acknowledge the letter.
Okay. So as far as you are concerned,
so we had
as far as you are concerned, the 7 days notice required by law, you had more than satisfied it because your notice is 12th of September. Interesting. But when you did this press conference and you served notice again that you are going to begin a strike, who were you serving the notice to?
We served the notice to our employer.
Your employer?
Yes.
So the latest in time is what we have to take as your notice. Is that not so?
As far as the legal issues, now
this means this cancelled your earlier notice. You don't recognize it that way? Okay, so Kuku, proceed.
But I'm actually wondering how this could have been a notice to the employers. If you read the first paragraph, we, the three teacher unions, the Ghana National Association of Teachers, NAT, the National Association of Graduate Teachers, NAGRAT, and the Coalition of Concerned Teachers, Ghana, CCTGH, have invited you this morning to apprise you of developments and happenings on the education front. The you here is the media, if you like, at the public, not the employers, if we are talking in terms of very defined extensions, lines of extensions. So that's what it was. They went on. Clearly, the Labour Act doesn't support the action.
So even if this was a declaration, official declaration of strike, and not a notice, he says it's a notice to the employer. If this is not a notice, then his argument about the 12th September notice is what will hold.
But you see something, 12th September, assuming without admitting that notice that was served on the National Labour Commission was in consonance with this act. What happened between 12th September and December 9th?
Okay.
What happened?
Right, proceed.
Nothing happened. So it means they themselves, by their conduct, actually made that whole notice redundant and proceeded to do other negotiations with their employers. That's the assumption I get, because if you read the same statement they issued, they talk about a meeting with they invited to a meeting by the Ministry of Employment and Labour Relations.
Talk about it himself.
Yes, which he did. So it means that beyond that September thing, they were actually engaging their employers or other institutional stakeholders in order to find a solution to the matter.
Right.
So relative to the law, it's unsustainable. Their position is unsustainable. Their commentary about with it too is unsustainable. That's my candid opinion. That doesn't take away the fact that perhaps there's some value to their case. And I agree. Look, it's a systemic thing. The former education minister, Madam Jane Obuajimai, recently I read, I think I have a copy here, where he made a point in terms, this began the validation process, am I right?
Yes.
And it was, she made the observation that, look, here's a situation where they employ teachers. They work 2 years without pay, sometimes because they don't even have appointment letters.
Yeah.
I mean, what kind of system is that? So there's a real problem out there, and it is not peculiar to this time. It's a deep-rooted thing.
And the problem has led to a lot of corruption.
It doesn't make sense.
Within the controller.
Yes.
Because teachers, after 2 years of accumulation of their salaries,
fantastic.
some of them get approached that come and see so and so, come and see so and so, we'll work your salaries out. What you need to do is promise us a percentage. And some go, they promise the percentage, and they get their salaries done for them. Those who don't do that remain unpaid.
Yes, and that is true. And that's why I have some sympathy for the teachers. But in dealing with the issue, you cannot ignore the law. We have to take that into consideration. Otherwise, we better start throwing this into the dustbin, or perhaps call for amendments if we think it's unrealistic in terms of legislative impact. But in the absence of that, you got to go according to the legal regime. Otherwise, this will be a vote for constitutional lawlessness. Now, let's come to the details. I realize, having listened to all sides, there's a certain discrepancy relative to figures and payments that have been made. And it's happened even here. You asked some few questions about figures. What I have seen, and this is from official GES source, so it's only one side of the story. Reading the teacher's statement, I realized that they're relying on some sources at the Controller and Accountant General.
That's right.
That is supposed to have done some validation. And on that basis, they think that what the Controller and Accountant General presented should have been the basis for the movement releases. Now, yeah, please. No, I don't mind. It may help if he wants to make a point.
I think you should conclude. Take a note, make a note, and then I'll let you speak to any things you have to.
What the figures I have here, and these are subject to verification, and I'll conclude on it. The entirety of the applications, from what I heard, was 120,232. I heard him a few moments ago make a 120,000 over 120,000.
That's those affected.
Yes,
not the amount.
That was good. Yeah, those affected and going through validation.
Right.
They have validated, according to GES, and the subject to verification and challenge, 92,164 validated. 87,556 fully paid. Then 1,200 cleared for payment December 19th, 2019. This means in the next 5 days. GS's position is that as we speak, they have 647 outstanding where they see what they call major discrepancies. The major discrepancies, I think the teachers in their own statement listed them. I'm not sure if I should go over it. The statement, I think, was from a GES position. They talk about some teachers were paid on ranks they were not on. Some teachers had no personal records on the payroll between 2012 to 2014. Some teachers were not owed any arrears yet, were credited with huge amounts of money. Some teachers were employed as pupil teachers but were paid as senior superintendents. Some female teachers were to be paid night watchman allowances. Their view is that Controller and Accountant General, which is a professional body, had done a professional work, and that is what they want to rely on. The GS, this breakdown I just gave you, they tell us that March 2017, they validated 63,212 and paid 61,612. March 2018, they validated 13,177 and paid 12,016. August 2018, they validated 13,928 and paid 13,928 all. Then November 2019, 1,847. They approved for payment in December 2019, 1,200. So in all, their view is that 92,164 have been validated and 88,756 paid. Now, these are figures. I hear the teachers respond, sometimes dispute some of these figures. That is why, in my view, look, Wednesday, I went to the extreme of saying that perhaps full disclosure and transparency will help all of us when we come to this discussion so that we have an informed basis. Total figures and payments and names should be put out in the public domain. That is, if they are not going to go to negotiate on the NLC platform. If it's within the context of the NLC, there's no need for this publication that I'm calling for. It's all of them are matured. There is the need for them to be committed to the process and deal with the issues and sort out the discrepancies there. But
the law actually requires confidentiality if they do it in that process.
I saw it here. Yes, I've seen it. And that is why I'm saying that I went to the extreme earlier. And that was because I thought the NLC platform had collapsed. And the public cannot be waiting.
Okay.
And we cannot stay uninformed. And our children, including their own children, are in a fix.
What sort of problem is this that remains unresolved since 2012?
I think it goes beyond 2012. Teachers' difficulties, the institutional,
If it goes beyond 2012, then that's such a huge indictment on the education ministry and service.
That is why I have some sympathy for the teachers as well. I mean, we are better, a nation, but we should be better in dealing with some of these things that are so perennial.
So if they create the problems, they shouldn't be complaining.
Who should be? They shouldn't be
those complaining.
Well, I've actually had a chance to criticize some of those who are in charge and the kind of language and communication they are doing. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. You don't go out threatening, I'm going to employ new people. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't even help labor relations, the way you have to constructively engage. Don't come in and talk about NDC or another political party engineering the teachers. It doesn't make sense. It's unsustainable. Those things, those are distortions. Those are pollutions that do not help.
Okay.
So I've had cause to take on those people. But beyond that, you focus on the substance.
All right.
Because we want a solution.
Okay. So before I come to the other teacher here, I'll bring the other teacher here to also share his experience. But I want to have, because Coco has referred a lot to the Labour Act, and because you are the lawyer here, you can. Well, he's got the laws.
I know.
With him.
I know.
Okay, so you wanted to make this point. Make it quickly, and let's have Dennis also respond.
It is not the case that whatever controller put out there, we are saying that must be paid. That's not our position.
What's your position?
Our position is that if controller has, you see, this thing has gone through certain process. Ghana Audit Service did the validation. They gave the list to Ministry of Finance. Finance forwarded it to controller for them to do the payment, work out the fees. So they did that and then submitted it to GS for their review, which we believe it's a normal process, right? So if you've done the review and we have observed that there are anomalies, all that we are saying is that please segregate the anomalies on one side and pay those, like Koku is saying, according to them, they have 1,200, which they have cleared for payment. So pay that one. Why should you delay up to this point?
19th. That's
They gave them the data.
Are you aware that that's their plan, that in December 19, on December 19, they would have paid this?
See, I'm saying that we have had
batch
a
of
roadmap.
validated.
We have had a roadmap, and this legacy arrest should have been paid in November. And that is why controller gave them the data on the 9th of November. So we were expecting it to be paid middle of November. So they have delayed the process. You see, and I think that I was not here, but somewhere when they my information is that the minister put out there that they don't owe teachers any arrears at Prempeh College 70th anniversary. I'm sure it was that and which actually infuriated the teachers. Because if they come out with such a statement and then we don't react to it, then it means that the status quo remains.
You confirm that statement?
In fact, I was out of country at that time, so I don't know whether they did that. In fact, when they even declared the strike, I was out
but
of the
it'd be very terrible if they didn't have
I'm told from official sources that there are some arrears from 2018 to now, which are not the same as the legacy arrears.
Yes,
this was because
the
they were being
batch of
migrated from the what they call integrated personnel and payroll to the human resources thing. So there are arrests there. But there's a last one. I want him to clarify because he made a point that they haven't said
they should pay on the controllers.
But this is the statement they issued, if I can refer to it. It said the subject for discussion, that's at the meeting with the Labour Ministry. The subject for discussion was the legacy arrears, which spanned the period 2012 to 2016. Primarily, we, the unions, were concerned with the payment of the said arrears because our checks had revealed that the arrears had been verified and approved for payment by the Controller and Accountant General's internal audit unit about 3 weeks earlier. However, we were informed that when the verified data was handed over to the GS for review and action, the GS would not budge because it claimed some discrepancies had been discovered with some of the payments already effected. And I read those discrepancies earlier. Okay. Last point, please. It's very important. We, the unions, disagreed vehemently with the above reasons, since we believe the inputs had been done by a professional entity for the resultant payments to be effected and had been sanctioned by the Controller and Controller and Accountant General's own internal audit unit. All right. So they were clear.
You're right. Okay, so yeah, Dennis, what do you say?
Well, Samson, first of all, you could, if you decide to go into substance of this issue, it's basically a systemic mistrust on the part of the employer and the employee, thereby leading to industrial dispute. And over the time, and they don't trust each other. You said this to me, you did not fulfill your promise, and sadly, but in truth, the only way sometimes to resolve some of these issues is to come to the town, be a town crier, and cry to the people of Ghana. And based on the political pressure and social media, you get the requisite personalities making statements and making commitment with the media, sometimes hold them accountable, and they get the solution. Although that is not the lawful ways of resolving the issue, unfortunately, the unlawful ways have always gotten the solution that they so desire. And so you have an instance.
You said that is not the lawful way. It might not be the appropriate way at the time, yes, but it is not unlawful.
No, it's unlawful to the extent that in terms of the mode of commencement of declaring strike in this country, many a times, from doctors to almost all the employees, most of times they go about it by announcing it in the media and they embark on it. Sometimes, the last time JUSAC did the same, they didn't follow the procedure. It has happened to teachers, doctors do it. So I'm saying that most of the times they use unlawful procedure and end up getting the results that they so desire. Okay. Secondly, apart from the mistrust between the employer and the employee, there is also a similar mistrust between the dispute resolution body and the employees. But some of us do know that Labour Commission is employee friendly. Some of us based on our experience.
No, however, but some have their deep-seated mistrust.
I know.
Particularly when you have a commission,
yes,
whose leadership has to change because there's a change in political power and all of this. So they have their own suspicions about them.
I was about to add that when it comes to private companies, in terms of practice, we realize that they are more, towards listening to the employee.
Right.
But when it comes to government, right, it appears that they are side with the side of the employer. Mm-hmm. And so there is also a similar mistrust. And that's why it's quite unfortunate for him to issue a statement that if you don't respect us, we don't respect you. It should never be sent and it should never be encouraged. Because whether we like it or not, we need to respect these institutions. The institution might have its own challenges, but we'll see how best we can resolve it and deal with it. So I think on the face of it, they do concede that in terms of the legalities, they missed. I think they cannot dispute those facts. And
I'm not sure they have conceded that.
They have conceded. You need not. I'm saying if you throw the facts as you have, if you look at the so-called letter of 12 September 2019 and how the issue that resulted in it, if you look at the objective standard that has been set by the law, they themselves do concede. And it's no surprising that they say that, oh, we have, at first when it came out, the posturing was that we have not heard of these orders, but later on, I think on the advice of their lawyers, they decided to rescind the decision not to go on strike. But secondly, something.
No, but if you have gone to obtain an order, yes, on their blind, yes, side without them, yes, and then you go on the media to say, I've obtained an order.
Yes.
Of course, you're a lawyer. You will not advise your client to obey on the basis of a media publication. You would rather wait because the law requires that you should serve it on them. They should see it first. So if you obtain an order in the afternoon, yes, and you are on the media and they say, we haven't seen it,
yes,
and so we are not ready to say we are going to abide by anything. They haven't done anything wrong.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that I'm talking about the publication they made thereafter. They actually issued a statement rescinding their decision to go back to the classroom based on the court order that they have seen, which I've seen it. Mm. So I'm saying that if you looked at the objective test, they would have missed. Okay. However, let's deal with the real issue, because you see, in all of this discussion, it's the students who are suffering. Mm. Now, we live in a country in which we have used education to divide this country in terms of how you progress. Mm. So the best public school, the best basic schools, sadly but real, are private schools. And these private schools contest with public schools to enter the best second cycle schools. The best second cycle schools over the years are public schools. So you have people within the private sector acting more in the public schools. Right. And the University Statistics Review over the past 20 to something years is the same top 20 schools that get the entry to the universities. And so you have a situation, if the teachers go on strike at the basic level, the people who are affected most are the poor, the people who decide to enroll their kids into the public institute. So in all of this, some of us are of the position that the mistrust has come out. Let's see how best we can resolve the issue. If the issue relates to the legacy, I've seen the government has thrown out some numbers. Is it possible that the Teacher Association can also come out with their numbers so that we can compare and contrast? Because you see that it has been a general statement that has been made, but I'm yet to see the specifics on a part of the numbers that has come from the teacher associations. And most importantly, we also think that some of us think that the communication has not been helpful. You could see that some of them have, the government sometimes, some spokespersons from the part of the government have taken a very hostile stance towards the teachers. Some of the teachers have also taken a very hostile stance on how they react. So it doesn't solve the problem. So as Kwaku rightly pointed out, the law has to be respected. We have to act within the regime. And I think that if they decide to put their case across, despite the fact that they don't trust the system, sadly, in terms of our legal regime, we need to see how best we can strengthen the system. You might not like the court, there's a perceived corruption, but that's the only way we can fix the system. Okay. So I will urge the teacher associations to go back to the sitting table and go in accordance with the law. And I believe strongly that they can still get their points across in going to the context of the law. And most importantly, let's see the numbers, let's see how best we can judge. And the mistrust, let's see how best we can work on the mistrust. And it would be great to have the Minister for Education sitting next to the teacher associations and making a public statement to the whole nation saying that, you know what, we are listening to the issues, we are going back and having a sitting table, and we'll come up with a release jointly by both parties so as to resolve it.
Yes, so I suppose that lecturers don't have any, your problems sometimes are not peculiar, almost the same. And you also have to hit the road and things. But in my introduction, you heard me refer to the Human Capital Index, by the World Bank. We started this year, because that was released in November 2018. We started this year on the basis that our education system was poor, according to their verdict. And I think it is not in dispute. It's not been disputed. We were ranking 116th on a table of 157, is it? Then teachers were identified as being absent and idling. Therefore, as much or many as half of the students in school were not getting taught. These are the teachers who are demanding perfection in the payment of their salaries and things. Do they have the moral right?
Yeah, thank you, Samson. It's very unfortunate that we are seeing these things playing out in the public. One would have thought that looking at the effort by government to restructure basic education and then move it up to the highest level, one would have thought that this would not come up. But of course, we are dealing with human beings, so sometimes these things come up. My worry is that when you look at the statistics by the Human Capital Index, it gives a very damning picture about education, and want to see how best we can address this quickly. So you realize that, yes, much as you want to support the effort of teachers to be able to deliver the public good, you also want teachers also to play the game according to the rules that govern the whole process. So it brings us into a very difficult situation. Now look at all that the teachers are saying. There's one thing which is very clear, that there is a sort of problem with their relationship, employer-employee relationship. There's a big problem that it's not today, over the years. The state and the stakeholders have not been able to address this head on, and it lingers on from regime to regime. Unfortunately, you know, in politics, once you lose power, you inherit all the good things, including bad things. So it becomes albatross around the neck of, you know, regimes, and they find it difficult to handle. If you look at the other variables, such as, you know, figures. We are talking about figures that, monies that are supposed to be paid to them. You realize that there are difficulties in how to reconcile these things. I believe that the two stakeholders, I'm talking about employers and employees, they all have something that is important for us to consider. But I would urge the teachers that if you want your case to be listened to by people, you need to be able to walk through that tight rope of legal regime so that everybody will appreciate what you're doing. I was surprised that if you look at the Labor Commission Act, it gives you an idea that once you are doing negotiation and you hit a snag, you need to be able to inform the Labor Commission. You wrote, they did not respond. And the lawyers will help us here that what happens when it happens like that. But from a layman perspective, I believe that there are other ways that you could have dealt with this situation without necessarily now going to the public and all that. Of course, that's a place you have sympathy. But remember, they are not the people who employ you. So they will not be able to take concrete decisions. We also want to look at the plight of the teachers. Uncle Kweku and earlier speakers have made great points about this issue. And you realize that it's becoming one too many. Just simple biometric system, walk people through, let them be able to handle this issue in no time so that people can be paid what is due them. It's taking them forever to do that. Yeah, in certain places, 2 years, people are on the job without salary. And this is unfair.
Some have done more than that.
Yes. Some people even get to pension and they still have their back pays not paid to them. That's unfair. If we tie it to what something you did say earlier on, that we need to look at this index, then you realize that the quality, if you have this type of non-charlatan attitude towards, you know, addressing educational problem like that, you should not expect any, you know, product that is worth considering. And for me, that's where the worry is. So going forward, I believe that government should be able to handle this situation very well. And then teachers also should not also be in a haste to go out there and serve notice and do all that. Once you know,
they have become familiar that that's the only way they get results.
Yeah,
but the language that is understood by
that sadly. But at the end of the day, you realize that that will not help unless you sit down. You go by what the Labor Commission is saying. Sit down with the employer, talk, and if you reach a dead end, there is always an opportunity for you to move on.
Just to point it out, you know, under the Labor Act, it allows for, you know, a voluntary arbitration in case when they go through this process. It even gives a cooling off period because this cooling off period is for quote and unquote is to cool off the heads, sit down, and let's see how best we can negotiate. And no matter how there is trust of the commission, whether we like it, and I'm an officer of the law, I think that we need to still, you know, go and use the institution. If you disagree with the position of the Labor Commission, there are several remedies that you can take. There are instances where the Labor Commission has lost on case that was taken. Nothing also prevents, and one of the want to point out, nothing prevents the employee from taking the employer to court to go and say to the court that you need an order to compel the employer to pay its money to him. That's something that we always lose sight of.
They know that these are employers that even when you get compelling orders, it takes another whole, you know, different game to get them to comply.
I disagree on that fact because we as lawyers know for a fact that it depends on the mode with which you enforce your orders. If at the end of the day, the court makes an order, union, because they have a right to form the union takes a case to court on behalf of its members, to the labor court. And these are facts that at the end of the day can even get summary judgment on, because if they present their facts to show that these are my employees, they have not been paid for this period. Because remember, that under the Labor Act, the employer is under obligation to provide a letter of employment. He has an obligation to provide remuneration. And you could see from the discussion that at least the employer admits there is some monies to be paid. There's no dispute about that. That also gives them the right, as a course of action, to be able to go to court. So that's a lawful way of making sure that its contractual obligations are upheld. But we should not encourage them to go by the unlawful way.
I see. So I want to. Okay, finish up. Yes. I'll come and finish up with you.
So if you look at the situation, you realize that the two actors should not be in a haste. Once you have that goodwill from government, it doesn't matter whether you don't believe that the government will do the needful. Please just exercise restraint, because you can also be caught under the law that you'll be taken to court. That yes, the strike is illegal, and once the strike is illegal, people can sue you. That I expect my child to go through exam at this time and all that, they can sue you. So I believe that much as we want to fight for our interests, we should also make sure that the law, which is a useful instrument that regulates our conduct, will also work so that it creates that harmonious environment for all of us to operate.
So you see, before you speak to the matters that I think we should be progressing from, where are we today?
No, we are back in the classrooms.
You are back in the classroom because you have been compelled by an order of the court at least for 10 days.
Yeah.
My question about where we are today is not about the fact that you are back in the classroom. We know that. When are you getting your monies, or you have gotten them?
We've not gotten the money. You see, Samson, I appreciate all the comments that the other panelists have made. I appreciate them. You see, the point really is that the employer who is supposed to have even prepared that data to enable controller to pay us couldn't even do that way. You see, at that time, they did not even trust the employer to do that kind of job. That is why they brought in the Ghana Audit Service. So Ghana Audit Service did that way, provided the list to Ministry of Finance. Finance forwarded it to controller. Controller finished its work on the 9th of November. Gave it to GS for you to review. That if it were salary to be paid, would they have delayed the process up to this point? So you see, the commitment of the employer to let the people have their salaries is in doubt. And that is where we are tackling the issue. As for all the other things that the other panels, we appreciate them. There's no two ways about that. That we ourselves didn't do the right things at some point in time. But that does not take away the fact that people have worked over 2 years and you must pay them.
When you say you didn't do some of the right things at a certain point,
like not going by the Labor Act and then all the other things.
So Kwaku is right that you actually
Kwaku
admit.
Is right, yes.
You admit that
Kwaku is right.
It's an illegal strike.
Kwaku is right. But in this country, we use a legal strike to get things done.
No, but we are.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yes, Samson, don't let us think that.
But when we sit,
no, Dennis, wait. You're saying that you use illegal strike to get things done. So you do a strike illegally.
You see,
you are teachers. You are teaching the children.
It's a lesson. You see, we are teaching the children that, but that is not what we are teaching. That indeed, government itself think that if you go on strike, they can even meet you and then resolve your problem for you.
I see.
Really?
I'm telling you.
So government sits anticipating and expecting that you will take a strike before they resolve your issue.
Yes. Otherwise, why should
that's don't get the logic of that.
You don't get it.
I don't get the logic of that.
Look, I'm saying that this thing happened in 2016. When you said we were going on strike, they sat us down.
So let's try and finish up. Let's try and finish up. Question now is, you are back at least for 10 days. I don't know, maybe we should start this way. What are your instructions to your lawyers? You say they should go and get to the documents from the court so that you get to know. Do you have an intention to go to the court and vacate this? Because you can go and vacate what they have put against you. Or on the 10th day or by the 9th day, they would have repeated that application and then it will come to you on notice, this time not on your blind side. So you go to the court and defend that you haven't done a wrong thing and that they should remove the injunction. Or what are you doing?
Yeah, we will definitely instruct our lawyers to put in their defense. So that one, we will take it from there. I understand.
Yes, but beyond being compelled, you mean you're still at a standstill as regards your arrears?
Yeah, because they have not paid. If they pay the arrears, trust me, we will go back to the classroom and do what is needed.
You're already in the classroom.
We are already there, yes. But we are trusting that the 10 days will also cover the period that they themselves have earmarked for the payment. Okay. So we are waiting for it. If 19th December we get these monies paid, all well and good.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
At least we have achieved our objective.
They've not called you, and you don't expect a call because there is a roadmap for 19th when you should be paid the last batch.
No, if they call us, we will definitely attend those meetings and then do.
All right. Okay. Yeah.
The figure I see relative to the 19th is 1,200, and he's talking of 30,000.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah. So there's a discrepancy.
So by 19th, you're talking about only 1,200
That's
people.
what officially
that is what
listed.
they say they have. A controller gave it to them.
So you want that to be paid?
We want that to be paid.
Not 30,000 people.
No, but it's a process, right? It's a process. So as and when Minister of Finance forwards the list to them, I'm sure possibly they are also doing this based on their figures or money.
So why didn't you wait for the 1,200 people to get to December 19 and hold the entire system to ransom?
You see, Samson.
If you are ready to take for just 1,000 in respect of 30,000, then you didn't need to go on this strike.
Samson. You see, as at the time that we were talking about these issues, they had not put out any figure. It's only when the strike action came in that they said the list that the controller gave them was 1,847 or so, and that according to them, it is only 1,200 which has been approved for payment. You see, as far as I am concerned, as far as I'm concerned, these figures, you have to even interrogate them.
Yeah,
like what you said.
I agree.
You see, we have to interrogate them.
All right, but you didn't answer me. What are you doing about, this human capital index? That's so terrible, and such an indictment on your work, as teachers. What do you say about it?
It's unfortunate that this thing is playing out. But in a country where
about 56% of Ghana's human capital will go waste in the next 18 years because of the poor quality of the country's education system. Okay? And then they indicted the teachers. Absenteeism.
It's only the teachers that they indicted.
Absenteeism and idleness.
But in the situation where you have to leave the classroom and go chase these things, which results are you expecting, Samson?
You think this is justified? That about half of the children who are in school are not being taught because of teacher absenteeism and idleness on the part of teachers during productive hours.
What's the cause of the absenteeism?
What's
the cause of the idleness?
It's because you have not been paid your arrears.
It's not, we are not talking about being paid. It's salaries that has not been paid. It's salaries that has not been paid.
Salary arrears.
Yes.
Yeah.
Complete salary for 24 months.
Sure.
So it's not that they have paid the salaries and some arrears on top which have not been paid. No.
Yeah. Okay.
Salaries
for 24 months remains unpaid. We have to
just a quick one. What the Labour Commission did in terms of seeking to go and enforce its orders that it had already issued to the associations, and I'm told that the return date for that is happy to be on the 19th. So it's basically to say that I issued an order pursuant to my powers under Section 172 that call off the illegal strike in accordance with the law and come back to the Labour Commission. That was ignored, and that's how they went to court to enforce this order.
Yeah, but you and I know that they went on their blind side. Ex parte, anything could have happened. So if they have the opportunity next time to be in court, they may also make an argument that the judge will take a different view.
I agree, but I'm talking about the substantive matter. The substantive matter is about enforcement, which is returnable next week, but which has to be dealt with.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much.